So now we're going to discuss the investment yield. And for that, you have this formula. So basically, another useful related calculation is the answer to this question. So if we know how much money we invested at the beginning of an investment and we know the total amount which we have achieved at the end, including any interest, then what is our rate of return? Yield basically means the rate of return. So let's say you invested 100,000, which became 150,000 at the end of the period. So then what is your return? That is what you want to calculate over here. That what is your yield? The same question can also be asked with regard to the cost of borrowing. So if we know the amount borrowed at the start and the total amount repaid at the end, including interest, the answer is found by using this formula. It's a simple basic formula, but it is important to note that this formula is again for simple interest and it is not for compound interest. So it is going to work only when there is one investment at the start and then there is one cash flow at the end. If there are cash flows in the middle of the investment, then you will have to use the compound interest formula because then there will be compounding. But we're just going to do the simple interest formula for now. So let's do a practice question. So let's do this practice question. I buy a painting for EUR 24890. I keep the painting for 198 days. I then sell it for EUR 26525. What yield have I made on this investment? So we're going to use the yield formula to do the calculation, which is cash flow at the end divided by cash flow at the start minus 1, and this is multiplied by year over days. So the cash flow at the end, I then sell it for EUR 26525. This is the cash flow at the end of the period, and the cost at which you bought it is the cash flow at the start. So this is going to be 26525 24890 minus 1 and multiply by year. Now, what should be the year convention if you're using EUR? It should be 360 and divided by 198, which are the actual days. Solve this, you get 0.1194 converted into a percentage, which means multiplied by 100, 11.94%. This is the return that you get from your investment. Now let's try another question. So this one first, I'll give you some time to solve it on your own and then I'll show you the solution. So the question says, I buy a painting of British pound 24890. I keep the painting for 198 days. I then sell it for a GPP 23,000. What yield have I made on the investment? So we'll again use the yield formula, which is cash flow at the end cash flow at the start minus 1 times year divided by days. So the cash flow at the end is 23,000 and the beginning cash flow is 24890 minus 1. The year, now you're dealing with British pounds, so the year number of days will be 365 divided by 198. So if you solve this, you get negative 0.1400. A negative simply means that there has been a loss instead of a profit. So that means there has been a negative 14% loss on this investment. Now we're going to calculate strip interest payment. Basically, it is the process of compounding together more than one rate. So, for example, you might have an investment for 92 days. For 92 days at the rate of 10%. Then whatever you get from this investment, you reinvest it back for another 92 days. For another 92 days at 15% rate. So how much return do you get in the form of percentage if you combine this complete period? This is called the process of stripping, and you can see over here that this is the formula, the simple interest rate for a period up to 1 year. So for that, what you can do is 1 plus the first interest rate, which is 10%, then the days in the first period, which were 92, and then divided by the number of days in the year. Then multiply it by 1 plus the second interest rate, which was 15%, times days in the second period, which was again 92, and divided by the number of days in the year, and so on. You can keep on doing that. So let's look at an example of how this is done. And once you're done with this, you also need to multiply it by year divided by total days. So moving ahead, the question is, suppose I borrow your 1 million for 73 days at 4.7%. At maturity, I borrow the whole amount again, principal and the interest for another 124 days at 4.9%. What is my simple interest rate over the combined period of 197 days? So you want to know what is the interest for the combined period of 197 days, and there are two parts to it. It's for 73 days, 4.7% interest, and then for 124 days, 4.9% interest. So you need to combine both of these interest rates and tell us that what is the simple interest rate for the complete 197 days. For that, you're going to use the stripping formula, which is equals to, and we have bracket 1 plus the first interest rate. So I'm just going to write the first R, which means the first interest rate, times days in the first period divided by year, and bracket close. Then we have multiplied this by, now we have the second one as well. So 1 plus the second interest rate. So again, I'm going to write R times days in the second period divided by year, and you're going to close the bracket once again. And then this whole bracket will be closed, multiplied by year divided by the total days. So this is your stripping formula that you are going to use. This. So let's plug in the values now. So you have 1 plus, now the first rate is 4.7%. Yeah, wait. Days in the first period are 73. Year, now you can see that you're using EUR, so the convention is to use 360, bracket close. Multiply it by 1 plus the second year, the second rate, which is 4.9%, so 4.9%. Now days in the second period are 124, the year will be 360, and bracket close. Multiplied by year is going to be 360, and the total days were 197. If you solve this, you should get 0.04855 and multiply it by 100, so 4.855%. You can do it for as many periods as there are. So if there's a third period, you'll incorporate a third period over here and so on. But it has to be for within a 1 year period.
So now we're going to discuss another topic, which is interpolation. In the money market and the foreign exchange market, prices are generally quoted for a standard period such as 1 month or 2 months and so on. So if the dealer needs to quote a price for an odd date, or you even call this a broken date, it means that the quotation is not available. Then the quotation needs to be interpolated from the ones that you have. The formula to do that is that you take the first rate plus the second rate minus the first rate and multiply it by the days between the first date and the required date and the days between the first date and the second date. We'll look at an example so that this is more clear. So the interest rate for 3 months, 92 days, is 15.2%. So you have the, sorry about this. Yeah. So you have the 3 months rate, which is for 92 days, 15.2%. The interest rate for the 4 months. So for the 4 months, it is 123. 15%. Now these rates are available. So the 3 months rate and the 4 months rate is available. Similarly, the 1 month, 2 month, 5th, 6th, and so on will be available. But the person needs the rate for 104 days. So it's between 3 and 4. You need to find out what is the rate for if an instrument is for 104 days. So we're going to use the straight line interpolation, the formula that I have just shown you. Basically, it is assumed that the rate is going from the 92 to the 123 on a straight line basis. So that's where you can figure out that what will be the rate on the 104th day according to that. So first, let's write down the formula. The interpolated rate is the first rate. The second minus the first minus the first rate. multiplied by days between the first and the required rate days between the first and the second date. Okay, so the first rate, is the before rate. So this 3-month rate is the first rate. This is 15. Wait. So the first rate is 15.2%. The second rate is a 15%, then minus 15.2%. And then you have days between the first and the required rate. So the first is this, and the required is this. So 104 minus 92. And days between the first and the second date. So again, this is the first date and this is the second date. So if you solve this, you will get an answer of 0.15122 and convert it into percentage, so 15.122%. This is the rate for 104 days.